It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso. You're on S3, and I can tell you there's something exciting to tell you about. And this is one of my favorites. It's on the bucket list as well. Our next guest is Darren Morrisby, the managing director of Setamono Japanese Homeware, South Africa's leading Japanese homeware and kitchen store for products made in Japan for functional living. He joins us in studio to talk about the growing popularity of Japanese homeware in the Western world as we celebrate Japan on Expresso today. Darren, welcome and thank you for bringing what is my bucket list item in the kitchen here today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So if I look at just how beautiful it is, these are, you can't even call them kitchen appliances, kitchen tools. These are pieces of art in your kitchen, aren't they?
Yeah, incredibly beautiful, functional pieces that work extremely well indoors and outdoors.
If I look at, you know, the way somebody would get into this type of industry, of course, Japan is all the way across the world. So where did the love for Japanese culture come from your side?
I worked in London for 17 years, and I've always worked in Japanese or Asian-style concepts.
Yes.
And through that experience, I traveled quite extensively.
Okay.
And Asia was one of my favorites, and Japan being my top choice.
It's a top choice for so many different elements. There's so many facets of Japan that enthuse and really there's a wonder that has the country gripping everybody. If I look at these over here, now South Africans immediately you resonate because you're thinking there's coal, there's a grid.
Yes.
It must speak to braai. That's kind of our quickest reference to it. However, the hibachi has with it so much culture, so much history as well.
Yes.
What type of meals would you prepare on a hibachi for those who are not in the know?
Ultimately, you can prepare anything on it. So if it fits on the grill, you can grill it. But ultimately, in Japan, what the Japanese do is they use it as their home cooking tool, their preferred choice of home cooking tool. If you go out into Japanese restaurants, you eat at yakiniku restaurants, which is especially using the hibachis, and they specifically use high-grade quality wagyu. Generally, it's thinner strips that's quicker cooking, but you can do a variety of different dishes. So, I mean, there's no limits to vegetables, to fish, to meats.
I think anybody who's watched a good reality cooking show, you'd know that there are vegetables go on here, chicken wings go on here as well. And as you mentioned, wagyu, which is just a pièce de résistance when it comes to protein on a hibachi. So when it comes to the hibachis that you have in front of us over here, you've got a couple of different styles of them. Is there any significance to the different styles, or is it just about choice, preference, family size?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's the predominant question that's always asked.
Yes.
Ultimately, what I've done today, we've got a much larger range, but we've brought these in.
All right.
This is a heated Conro hibachi. The one that's the red one is more called a shishirin. And then you've got this one here, which is a handmade Conro. So essentially what they are is they're all made from diatomaceous earth, which is incredibly porous. It holds the heat incredibly well. But ultimately, if you're talking about the best quality that you can get, it's going to be the handmade Conro, purely for the reason that they mine the blocks by hand under the Sea of Japan. They fire them to 1,000 degrees for 6 hours. It goes onto a conveyor belt, and they actually produce and make these by hand. So the actual diatomite blocks are said to be a minimum of 15 million years old because there's trapped phytoplankton that's inside it. So it makes them incredibly special.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's the great story. If you have guests over, you'd want to get a piece like this and speak to this because it even makes the food better. Because if you've got a story behind your cooking tool, suddenly you can say, hey, this is something being made on something with rich history, and I think that's the power of it. Why do you think Japanese culture and elements like these have become so popular in the Western world?
I think purely down to the craftsmanship and the quality and the functionality. Not only are the hibachis portable, but they're also used extensively in restaurants globally.
Yeah.
So Michelin star restaurants use the hibachi specifically because of the cooking power.
Absolutely. And the cooking power comes from these beautiful coals. Now, for any South African, you're thinking, can I take some of my normal coals and throw it into this thing and go for it? But I wanted to know, is there any sort of reason as to why you use those specific coals in here?
So, Benchitan charcoal, I mean, number one is that you can use, the answer is yes, you can use any charcoal in it. But we always suggest to people to at least try Benchitan once, the white Benchitan. And essentially, the Benchitan burns with no smoke, burns with no smell. It burns longer than regular charcoal, and to top it off, it's reusable. So you take the Benchitan, once you've finished using it in your hibachi, you place it into an extinguishing pot that we have, which is a handmade ceramic pot, which is low-fired.
Wow.
Put the binchotan inside the pot, put the lid on. It kills the oxygen. So essentially it can't burn anymore. So it goes back to its original state, so you can use it again and again.
Oh, you see, that's the key.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's no carcinogens in it. There's no chemicals. It's pretty much 96 to 98% pure carbon.
Well, that is the beautiful thing about it. Because often, you know, us South Africans, we lean over, and I mean, we get close to Braai Week and Braai Month, you know.
Yes.
So, I mean, you lean over these things and you're thinking, I'm going to be okay. But, you know, with the chemicals, anything quick light is going to have some, you know, chemicals in there.
Yes.
So that's the thing. If I just look at this, just to make sure that any South African who purchases this, don't start the fire in your hibachi in your kitchen. Can we just say that? I wanted to make sure that that's verbal. Because you don't want anybody getting the blitz out and going for it.
Yeah, so ultimately what we've got is the way that the Japanese do it is, especially you can see the pan. It's
Yes.
called a binchotan starter pan. And essentially what you do is you put your binchotan in the pot, you put it onto your kitchen hob, and you actually light it in the
Yeah.
kitchen. But you can also light it outside and transfer it into your hibachi. But essentially you burn it in your kitchen, and once it's fully lit, you transfer that pot into your hibachi.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So that is something which is very different to your normal
Wow.
kind of starting a fire by using a fire lighter. So
Yeah,
it's a lot cleaner using that.
I was just a bit worried that somebody would look at this and say, hey, let's braai in the house, and then
Yeah.
without actually knowing that there's something very delicate about it. And the fact that these coals that you've brought here, there's something that it does to the food too. You're not going to
Yes.
get any of that chemical char on the food. It's very
Absolutely.
pure. And, you know, this is a good reason to get yourself not only a hibachi, but a Wagyu steak too, because I think that the two
Yeah.
go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Some incredible accessories. Also, you got some of the plates as well there that really looks very,
Yeah.
very beautiful along with the hibachi.
Thank you.
It's a statement piece, and I'm so glad that you brought what is a bucket list item onto your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Darren, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks
And
for
you know,
having
if
me.
you would love to get one of these hibachis, Setamono, Japanese homeware, that's the place to go. They've got so many great varieties for you, and I think it's a story, it's culture, and trust me, your food is going to be infinitely better on a hibachi. Give it a try.